All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We use email every single day. It's become so integral to our lives. But have you ever stopped to think about what it would actually take to build a system like that? Like not just for your office or even a city, but a global email service handling millions or even billions of users.
Yeah, it's actually way more complex than you might think. There's just so many factors that go into it. And luckily, we've got a detailed requirements document for this deep dive to sort of, break down this massive project and see what kind of challenges we'd face in designing a system like this.
Yeah, and it's not just about like coding skills. This is about thinking through all of the angles and getting those requirements right from the start.
Exactly. You miss something crucial early on, and it could come back to bite you big time down the road. That's why system design interview questions are often so broad. They really want you to showcase that you can consider all these different aspects.
So, like we said, we've got this document to guide us through this deep dive. And it starts off by talking about the scope and scale. And this is where, we start talking about those big numbers, right? It asks us to think about the difference between, let's say, a small system for a couple hundred users versus something like Gmail with, what is it, like almost 2 billion users.
Yeah, a couple billion. It's a crazy difference in scale. Imagine the resources required to handle all those accounts and the constant flow of emails. Just indexing all those messages so search can work properly is a monumental task.
Right. And it's not just the user count today. You got to factor in potential growth, too. If you build this system, you want it to last. Then there's storage to consider. How much space does each person need for their inbox? I mean, we're talking about thousands of emails, attachments, all that adds up. Services like Gmail or Exchange Online offer 50 gigs of storage? Now multiply that by millions, even billions of users.
Exactly. And the average office worker gets over 100 emails a day easily. Think about scaling that up to a global level. You need rock-solid infrastructure to handle that constant stream of emails going back and forth across the world. 247.
And then, of course, you've got users spread out all over the planet. That means thinking about where you put your data centers, how you utilize CDNs, those content delivery networks, to store copies of email content closer to users. That way, wherever someone is, things load quickly.
Right. And with that global spread comes another layer of complexity. We're talking about latency, how long it takes for an email to travel from point A to point B, and then there are data laws that vary from country to country. Gmail, for example, supports over 100 languages. It's truly a global service.
So you've got the scale figured out. Now you have to think about what the system actually does, the functional requirement.
The core stuff, right? Sending, receiving, reading, deleting emails. Seems basic, but building these core functions to be efficient and reliable at a global scale is no easy feat.
Exactly. And then you start adding all the features we've come to expect, threading to keep conversations organized, labels or folders, whatever you use. And then, of course, search. Search is absolutely crucial. Imagine trying to find a specific email from 5 years ago without a good search function.
Oh, it would be a nightmare. Which of those features would you say you rely on the most?
Search, for sure. It's basically my external brain at this point. Can't live without it. And then we've got to consider attachments, right? What's the size limit? What file types are allowed? That impacts storage needs and the bandwidth required to move all that data around.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the different ways people access their email. We've got the web interface, mobile apps for iOS and Android, desktop programs. You have to build and support each of those, often with their own APIs. That's a lot of development work.
It is. And then you move on to the non-functional requirements, which are all about how well the system performs. Performance is key. We're talking about how quickly those emails send and arrive. How fast can you search your inbox and get results?
Exactly. Low latency is essential. That's the delay between you hitting send and the email actually arriving. It's got to be snappy. Users expect near instantaneous delivery these days.
For sure. And system availability is crucial. How much uptime can you guarantee? Services like Google Workspace or Exchange Online aim for something like 99.9% uptime. Imagine the frustration if your email service was constantly down.
Oh, yeah, it would be chaos. Security is another massive aspect. Encrypting emails, both when they're stored and when they're being sent, is absolutely essential to protect user privacy.
Right. And then you got to verify users are who they say they are. That's authentication. And once they're in, you have to make sure they can only access the data they're allowed to. That's authorization. And we can't forget about all the regulations like GDPR that put even more emphasis on data protection.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then you've got data consistency and durability. You want to make sure that once an email is sent, it doesn't just disappear into the ether, and that what you see on your phone is the same as what's on your laptop. But ensuring that everything updates instantly across a globally distributed system is a real challenge. So sometimes you have to accept that there might be a slight delay, what's called eventual consistency.
I see. And then there's scalability, the system's ability to handle sudden spikes in usage, like when a big news story breaks
Yeah.
and everyone's emailing about it. And it also needs to be able to grow smoothly as your user base expands.
Exactly. Techniques like horizontal scaling, basically adding more servers, and auto scaling, automatically adjusting resources based on demand, are really important for handling that growth.
So we talked about scope, scale, functionality, performance, security. It's a lot to consider. But then you run into the real-world limitations. Those are the constraints.
Right. You might have to work with specific technologies or existing infrastructure. Budget is always a factor. Deadlines can put a lot of pressure on the development process. And then there are all those legal and regulatory requirements like GDPR and HIPAA that can really influence how the system is designed.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. You're trying to build a system that can handle the demands of billions of users, keep their data safe and private, and do it all within the limitations of budget, time, and regulations. It's mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. It's a testament to the ingenuity of the engineers who build and maintain these global services that we take for granted. The next time you fire off an email, take a moment to appreciate the massive, complex system that's working behind the scenes to make sure it reaches its destination.
It makes you wonder, which of all these requirements do you think poses the biggest hurdle for the teams building these systems? It's a tough one, but that's something for you all to ponder. Until next time on The Deep Dive.